5.2 million people living with Alzheimer's disease in the United States, and that number could triple by 2050. I'm joined now by Betsy Broyles Arnold, author of Coach Broyles' Playbook for Alzheimer's Caregivers, and nationally renowned Alzheimer's expert, Dr. Gustavo Alva. Thank you to both of you for joining us. And Dr. Alva, I want to start with you and just ask, why is Alzheimer's becoming such a big problem right now?
Our overall life expectancy has certainly grown. From the turn of the century, where on an average people lived to their mid-40s, now people are living well into their mid-70s. And considering that the biggest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's is getting older, those are part of the explanations as to why we're seeing such a staggering growth in the number of individuals affected by this medical problem.
So that makes sense as the aging population grows. And Betsy, I want to ask you now, your dad, legendary football coach Frank Broyles, was Frank Broyles, and your own mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So what did you learn in caring for her that made you want to write your book?
Well, I think there's two important things that we learned. One is your attitude is your greatest asset. I mean, with this disease, we always tried to look at taking care of my mother as a privilege rather than a duty, and that way it made it positive rather than negative. And the other thing is there's just no substitute for good preparation, which it means, you've got to get a game plan, you've got to learn about the disease and educate yourself so you can become a better caregiver.
Now, I know it is so stressful when you're caring for someone like that, and you have mentioned that you have not small children, but children 10, 12, you said at that time. How do you do it all? What are some tips?
Well, it's difficult, but again, having that game plan and putting it into place helps you, organize your time. But it is difficult because you're making choices. But again, having a game plan, educating yourself, knowing what you're dealing with, going to a great doctor and learning as much as you can, much as information about the disease, getting their advice, makes it much easier to deal with.
And Dr. Alva, I want to talk about that now. She said going to the doctor, before you take that step, what are some of the warning signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease?
Well, certainly if somebody suspects that in themselves or their loved one, there might be a problem. And by problem, we're talking about short-term memory deficits, word-finding problems, problems with planning, organizing, getting lost in a place that previously would have been familiar. A combination of these things can actually herald the onset of the problem. And it's key and critical for other individuals to actually take notice of that, because this illness oftentimes creeps in gradually to the point where it's not necessarily being recognized. And one of the common pitfalls are that this is a part of normal aging, which it is not.
All right, and if someone notices some of those signs that you just said, really quickly, where can we go to get more information?
ALZ.org is a great resource of information for caregivers in particular. Betsy's book and also website are very helpful.
It's www.caregiversunited.com is our website. And then our book is Coach Broyles' Playbook for Alzheimer's Caregivers, which will help people understand the disease and give good caregiving tips.
All right, both of you, thank you so much. Such great information, as so many of us are affected and will be affected at least by someone with Alzheimer's in our lives. So thank you so much again for joining us, and everyone else, stay with us. We'll have much more on Low Country Live right after the break.